We've had a couple of tweets here that might fit quite neatly under the heading of something that a computer needs committee might discuss. Andy Kiss has said, how big a place and how much importance will business relationship management have in this new IT team of the future? What's your view on that?
So I think that's huge. It's huge across everything we do, whether you're going to be using cloud services or whether you're going to be trying to champion a project and get it through. You know, that definition of what the people in the business want as a service is absolutely key to the success, because if you don't set that, the boundaries, the service levels, the cost, everything about it in a way that both parties mutually understand and agree, then that project, no matter what it is doomed to failure. And I think that's been one of the key aspects when we hear the big newspaper stories about failed projects in the past. It's all about setting expectations and getting agreement on the expectations, because too often one party's thinking we can do this and the other party's thinking, well, it should be this. Whether that's in a cost or a performance basis, they're generally out of line. And that's a killer for us in IT. It really is, because it lets us down so badly.
Here's a related one then. Can I ask each of the panel if Facebook and Twitter is part of their IT services or on their roadmap? If not, why not? That's from IT Addict again. Edward.
Happy to take this one. So my organisation, Temper Executives, uses Twitter on a regular basis. A majority of what we do around the cybersecurity area involves the sharing of a lot of information. Now, we're privy to certain information which we don't disclose outside of known quantity, shall we say, but there's certainly an awful lot of information which is freely available to anybody who wants to see it. And we use Twitter as a conduit to enable the right people to know the right information through threat alerts and so on, that's, as I say, publicly available. We don't use Facebook. We have a LinkedIn page. We use LinkedIn quite extensively, actually, and I think there are an awful lot of organisations out there who could do a lot more with LinkedIn for all the foibles that it has. But Facebook, for example, is something which most of our workforce have as a personal social medium, and no doubt they use it very well. I have to say I'm on Facebook, and as much as my name is there, but I don't use it. My wife lives on it, but I don't. The point being, she'll kill me for that. The point being with the likes of any form of social media, be it many others, is around in the workplace corporate guidelines and setting a hard and fast rule with policy, but it also, in as much as policy is just something that for a lot of organisations is unfortunately shelfware rather than something quite useful, for any form of social media, any organisation has to put in tablets of stone for their employees what you can and cannot do in the workplace, what you can and cannot say about your employer when you're at home. Photographs of you wearing, if you work for a company that has a uniform, have a photograph of you on a Friday night with pints of beer in your hand whilst wearing the company logo is probably not a good idea, versus please use social media to push out, we have a new job opportunity in Geography X doing role Y. So social media has huge amounts of possibility for a lot of organisations.
It does, and I think that's good as a general point. But as we're talking about the IT team of the future here, will we not be hamstringing an IT professional by restricting their use of social media?
I think there's been an incredible growth of internal systems, practices that duplicate actually what happens in the wider world, and sometimes uses them in a different way. I know I've seen in action in a couple of the larger consultancies, global consultancies, where actually the stream that they have through Twitter is the way they solve problems. So they very quickly get problems out there to their diverse workforce that are able to come back, I already know how to fix this, or I've seen this before, or we did this and we did that. And actually these problems get solved very, very quickly. Email would not allow you to do that unless you already knew where to find the answer. And what's great about this is that actually you are crowdsourcing, if you like, through a known environment and through a known cloud potentially. But if you have very many employees, or you don't, and you want to tap into one of the into a particular seam of expertise, that is a great way of doing it. I think you have to be clear as to what you want social media to do for you, because often you just hear that we should have a Facebook page. Well, okay, but it's still got to ask the fundamental question as to why. If you're an FMCG or Coca-Cola or whoever, then you've got thousands of B2C clients, so you engage with them in different ways, you might run competitions, there's all sorts of things which make, yes, you should have a Facebook page, but that might not be appropriate as your organisation, that might not be appropriate, that medium. So you've got to understand this is just because it's technology based doesn't mean that you don't have to answer some fairly fundamental questions. What is the outcome you want to achieve? Or if the outcome you want to achieve determines the audience determines the channel, and channel determines the content. If you just work back from the outcome, and that's what we said at the top, you've got to deliver value for your organisation rather than just being seen to be sat somewhere. So if you want a specific outcome, social media might be a really good way of doing that. But it's the same with the problem solving. Email, not so useful. Something like Twitter may be incredibly useful if you have a known sort of crowd, if you like, to go and talk to about particular problems. And you find that engenders collaboration across the workforce. Also might help you to hire inspirational talent because they have the tools at their disposal that they're used to in their social lives and in their private lives. So you've still got to understand some fairly fundamental questions.
Yes.
Have a Facebook page if you can answer the question why.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Andy Kiss has sent another question in about using predictive analytics to support customers in a more efficient manner, which I think is a yes straight away. So let me change that slightly and say, what's the implication for those working in the IT department that we're going to need a lot more in terms of analytics, business analytics, search engine optimization, all these sorts of things?
I think, if I may just jump straight in, I think it makes the landscape at once more complicated. Flip the coin, it makes it more simple. If the right tools are in place, be it business analytics tools, be it pure technology, again, going back to the point on technology for technology's sake, it allows an organisation to be one step ahead of the customer feedback it might be soliciting through social media, ahead of changes in the technology environment that may mean an upgrade to all client PCs, whatever it may be. The challenge is that it shouldn't be left alone. It's not the panacea. No form of analytics engine actually answers the question. It comes back to the point Adam just made on Facebook. No amount of technology can answer the question, why should I have a Facebook page? So it comes back to the point we made right at the start of this afternoon, talking about, well, actually, who's actually paying attention to this from a skills point of view to answer the exam question, why are we doing this? What's the translation of the business requirement? Because you come back to the point you were making on loyalty cards. If an organisation wants to create a database of shoppers' buying habits, great, but so what? If there isn't some back-end process feeding out of or feeding from that data to say so-and-so needs some special promotion on white bread this month as opposed to brown bread, then if that's not there, then what's the point in having that analytics engine?
I think that's a really good point as well, because with big data, clearly the volumes are huge. So for us in the technology side, you're talking about bigger servers, bigger storage, bigger backups, bigger DR, bigger teams to support those. And if you go back to the initial question of, so what is the real win for the business? It could be tiny in some places, so you have to really work that through, I think, because otherwise you can incur a major cost without doing that properly.
Data scientists.
Yes.
Lots of them.
Absolutely, absolutely right.
Now, is there going to be more requirement in the structure of the IT team for security professionals? A question that's just come in here from Malintha Sen. Your thoughts about growing computer frauds, abuses and eavesdropping?
Well, it's the perennial challenge, isn't it? Security. I mean, I can't perceive there'll be less.
No.
But somehow, and maybe big data's got part of the answer. Somehow there has to be a way that we can authenticate proper data, proper communications between people in such a way that overrides the security threats and which basically just holding back the industry. It's now become a limiting factor for any company doing business. Is it secure? Massive chain and checks and things have to go in place, and big precautionary measures, which doesn't allow you to progress fast enough, I think. So we have to find a new solution to some of the security issues.
Is that an area that you would perhaps think of recommending if there's an IT professional watching now thinking, or perhaps my role's going to be on the wane over the next 5 to 10 years. Perhaps I should move into security.
I think yes, it's a tremendous. There's lots of opportunities. I think there's an opportunity there for someone to make a real killing on an app if they could come up with something that truly gave us more strength and security against some of the threats that are out there.
Heard that here first.
It's also immensely complex, of course.
Yes.
The technology that's already in place is just awesome. It really is. And
Could I come in on Keith's point there in terms of sort of the magic bullet that everyone's been talking about and wanting for decades, and really whoever does come up with this magic bullet will be doing very well for themselves. The challenge actually is more around the softer side, around security. Come back to my little hobby horse.
Yeah.
I deal with security technology professionals on a very, very regular basis. They are very, very astute, very high intellectual calibre, the challenge is actually translating some of the security requirements, the threat, the risk problem into the boardroom where the decisions really get made. And for an awful lot of members of boards of all sorts of organisations, understanding the risk to their business is tied up in a methodology way of teaching MBAs or whatever that just hasn't kept pace with technology to date. So ideal in the area of cybersecurity, a wonderfully nebulous term that means what it wants to those who want it to mean something else. The key point being is a lot of it's around the threat issue, where the threat is multiplied at an exponential level to such that it now affects business risk in the same way that financial fraud affected so many businesses, and it took the likes of Enron, Parmalat, WorldCom, some big global financial frauds, for global organisations as well as domestic organisations, national organisations in this country, then the FSA, to pay attention to, we need to look after our organisation's governance. And from a cyber security point of view, it's exactly the same. The right governance needs to be in place with any organisation such that the board level individuals, be they the chief executive, be they the individual responsible for risk, it could be the CFO, it could be a role in government called the SIRE, the Senior Information Risk Owner, who actually is suitably aware, suitably trained of the requirements that are upon them to make that risk call, because at the end of the day, it's their job that's on the line.
And there's still an IT linguist little role in there.
Well, and this, I'm coming to the point that the person who's tweeted in, so what's the role there? If somebody thinks their IT career is more given towards looking at the security angle, it's a burgeoning area.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I come back to Keith's point, would that we lived in a utopia that didn't have a requirement for IT security. It's something that's going to continue for a while yet.
I think there's another nuance to that. So we've argued that the IT and technologies driving businesses, changing businesses, is going to be fundamental to the success of organisations. It's quite powerful, but with great power comes great responsibility. So I think there are professionalism and ethical issues around that responsibility that people need to understand. So big data, it's great to be able to analyse big data, but what are the risks associated with that? And there's ethical conundrums, and there's also those commercial ones tied into that as well. I think there's been I think the profession is maturing in its understanding of the nature of the risks and the problems that it faces. I know that chief executives now, rather than if there's been a data breach or a data loss, they can ride a hit on their P&L for that year, but if they lose their client data, that could be the end game for that organisation. That's a fundamental issue. And there are some who argue actually you should turn this, a lot of this is we're coming at it from the wrong way around. If individuals were to own their data, then it would be incumbent on us to make sure it's accurate and up to date, which is of much greater value to an organisation that may wish to wants to use it. But then that relationship changes between those that have the data. Big organisations take my data or they mine my data and find out all sorts of things about me. But what if I was to actually engage with them in a different way? And I talked at the beginning about how the war between buying teams and sales teams might be changing to much more collaborative in nature. What if you came to me with a proposition as a major organisation and said, share with me your up-to-date data and you'll have these benefits? Well, I might enter into a contract with you that of my understanding and my choosing to say, yes, I'm happy to give of myself in such a fashion because I think I'm going to get, better products and services, a better understanding of me in return. The risk is that when people are trying to just take that, regardless of whether or not I feel that I want to enter into such a contract. And there might be, I think there is an education piece, and BCS I think has a good role to play in that, about what is it that you are giving of yourself? It has a value. It certainly does have a very major and real and tangible value in the marketplace. And that's everything from how I shop and where I shop through to health records, care.data or whatever it might be. So these are the issues I think that face the IT professionals of the future and right now because of the ubiquitous nature of IT and data and its importance and value to society, to government, to major organisations, to small companies. Yes. And, it's not so much that people understand where or what I'm searching for with my internet, with my search engine history, but also where. The context within which I make a search is now incredibly important. And that's why Apple went through a fair amount of pain to change their platform with regards to Google Maps, for example. Not just what I'm looking for is important, but where I might be doing the looking. So this is very, very fast paced. It's of the moment. There are people getting competitive advantage now because they understand this, but also there are businesses out there that are trying to change that, come at the same problem but from a different angle. And I think it's incumbent on professionals to understand the ethical responsibility that they have. I mean, good grief, I wish someone could switch my email off sometimes. The inbox is quite burgeoning. And then I feed the monster, don't I? Because I start replying to it frantically.
You
and
don't want to reply.
generate more email and all the rest of it. But actually, the impact that we have, both intended and unintended consequences of what we do as a profession, I think is pretty profound.